Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharp and I will be your host for today. Well, we have an awful lot to cover as always here on the National Leadership Briefing. And on top of everything that we're going to be covering today, we are going to be checking in with the War Room because we have in fact arrived at 0 day. 87 days ago, we began the countdown to the deadline, which is today, for the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election race eligibility period, which means that today is the last day when you can get your membership to become a party member so that you can receive a ballot in the mail to vote for the leader of that party. So we're going to check in on the War Room. But aside from all of that, we're going to have an answer period segment today. We're definitely going to be covering the essentials, the NLB essentials, and the information you need to know immediately before you to prepare for the road ahead. We're also going to be bringing in several citizens in Citizen Spotlight segments today. And we're going to start off, of course, with Cathy Peters, because we have a significant challenge here in our nation with human trafficking. And Cathy Peters is an anti-human trafficking educator, and she is someone who brings an update as to exactly where we're at and some new resources that you can use. We also have Grace Simon, an update from the councillor in Newmarket, Ontario, who has recently introduced a bylaw into her city to help rescue individuals who have been human trafficked into the legalized brothel system in that town. So we're going to get that information for you. And that's important to you because you can duplicate these things in your own communities. We also have Leanne Tiede, our school board trustee, educator, and trainer, and she's going to be giving us an update as well today. We also have a special guest today, Franco Terrazanno from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and a special event that we're going to be announcing at the end of the briefing today. And that is an event that's coming up on June the 9th, which is going to be focused on your engagement and the love that you have for your community. So stick around. It's going to be a big day. We're covering an awful lot today, so we're going to be moving fast. But remember, on the National Leadership Briefing, because you are registered for the briefing and we have the ability to get in touch with you, if you were unable to catch this the moment of the briefing when it happens and you're just watching it as a video later, you will also have received the post-briefing notes that go along with it. So everything that we're going to be covering today, remember, you're going to be seeing in the post-briefing notes, the definite backgrounders and the specific information crystallized for you. But let's get started right away. We can't waste any time today, just too much on the agenda. But we'll come back right after this video and get started with the first answer period segment. Bye for now. Well, for those of you who've been on the National Leadership Briefing, you know all too well that we do an answer period segment from time to time when we see an answer that pops up that needs to be shared with others, as there are many questions that come up over the time that we spend together here on the National Leadership Briefing. We also see in our political and governmental realms oftentimes more questions than answers. So we had to dedicate special time to be delivering specific answers to the people that we serve. So welcome to today's answer period segment. I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be a question that I get asked an awful lot here on the National Leadership Briefing from people who are brand new and people who come to Canada Family Action, the not-for-profit organization that we are spawned out of, that we get lots of questions as well. And but one in particular that pops up all the time, and that is, what is it that you do? And so, and of course, you always have the 30-second, what they call the elevator answer, like if you're in an elevator and you get in the elevator and it starts going up and somebody asks a question, well, what do you do? You've got about 30 seconds to kind of tell people what you do. So I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible, try and keep it to that. But it's really important here on the National Leadership Briefing in particular, that everyone on the briefing does know what in fact it is that I do. And that helps me to define what it is that you do. And that's why we have this banner behind me today. And we're dedicating this day today to helping people to understand that it really isn't about me. It's really all about you, and it's about you exercising the authorities that you have. So when I get asked what it is that I do, I tell them this. I tell them that, first of all, I encourage citizens to understand the authorities that they possess. And we do a very, very good job here, I believe, on the National Leadership Briefing with the information that we share on our website under the NLB Essentials menu tab to help people to understand what it is their authorities are. We actually have a specific video that I'll be sharing in the post-briefing notes for you today called the U Training video. And the U Training video shows you how you are positioned in relationship with the National Leadership Briefing to have maximum influence in your community using the authorities you possess as a citizen, as a constituent within your local electoral district, and also your kingdom authority. We encourage pastors to teach you as well as political party authority. So these things we're constantly helping people to do. So when you say, what do you do, Doug? In answer to that question, I encourage people to understand the authorities that they possess and that they can acquire, like political party authority. Second thing that I do here is I make sure that we have rally points that we can rally around. I make sure that as we come together around very specific things. We are a very wide and varied group of people. As much as we have very common interests in the faith communities that we serve, we have very many different types of people, but there are many things that we can agree on. So we help people to understand what those rally points are. Now, today, I want to include in the post-briefing notes a great article that I saw, and it's called Rally Point, Getting Your Family or Group Safely Together Again After a Crisis. Now, what's interesting about this is this article was written for a magazine that dealt with prepping in the case of a serious or significant disaster. How do you prep yourself so that you and your family will be safe? But I couldn't help but notice that many of the things that they refer to in this article are things that we believe in and practice here on the National Leadership Briefing when it comes about rallying together in times of crisis. For example, let me just read you this. It says, the moments after a crisis or a disaster can be incredibly chaotic. In today's world, we receive nearly instantaneous feedback from news outlets, images on TV, and the internet. The fog of any major event like this can leave us confused and in some cases panicked. Well, we find that oftentimes here on the National Leadership Briefing that there is a crisis, if I can just call it a crisis, when, say, a piece of legislation is introduced into the House of Commons and we are all scattered around trying to figure out how to respond to it. Perhaps it's an attack on our authority as parents to raise our children the way we want. Perhaps it's an attack on our right of belief or freedom of religion. It could be just an additional burden of debt, which we're going to talk about with Franco Terrazanno today from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. It could be an attack on our children's future because the piling of debt on their backs by our governments, or it could be an attack on the vulnerable people within our communities. But one way or another, we all have that same challenge with when there is this immediate crisis, we are panicked and scattered. So the rally points have to have certain characteristics. The rally points that we run to in times of these crises must have certain characteristics to make them attractive. The first one, it says here in this article, is that it has to be easy to find. So that is why you and I drill and train to understand what the 4 pillars are here on the National Leadership Briefing. That's why we have the NLB tab on the nlbcanada.ca website, because we want you to have access to these 4 pillars that you can immediately run to in times of crisis. For example, again, a piece of legislation gets introduced into the House of Commons that attacks the authority of parents to raise their children the way that they want. Then we immediately run to the rally point, and that becomes where we go from there when we interact with politicians and speak to them about the challenges we have with it. But the rally point must be easy to find, and we must be drilling and training ourselves to return to that rally point because it is confusing and chaotic when there is a crisis. It also said that the rally point should offer cover and concealment. when you argue a position, your position, from the perspective of the rally points of the four pillars, you're going to find that they're much easier to provide you the cover you need if you begin to get attacked. Oftentimes with Bill C4, for example, that was that bill that was rushed through the House of Commons, and there was an opportunity for politicians to attack you if you challenged them on the legislation. They attacked you because they would call you a homophobe or a transphobe, or you're a hater. Well, the cover of the four pillars gave us the opportunity to communicate back openly and honestly about our concerns, being from the perspective of the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want, or the respect for our right of belief and freedom of religion when it comes to our biblical worldview of marriage and family and men and women. And so we had an opportunity to do that from a place of cover and concealment. We also, it says here that it needs to be defensible for short periods of time, often these rally points. So these are defensible positions. Somebody can adequately argue their position from these rally points. So I'm going to include this article because it's quite interesting to understand why it is we do. So that's the second thing I do here on the National Leadership Briefing, is that I identify the rally points and I help encourage people to rally around them. So first of all, of course, understanding your authorities. Second of all, understanding the rally points and training you to run to them when in a time of crisis. And then the third thing is that I commit to everyone here on the National Leadership Briefing that I will always be scanning the horizon, looking for those opportunities where we can advance the principles that we believe in into society, culture, politics, and government. So in between the briefings, because you know the briefings are only 1 hour, once a month, we get together for a very short period of time, but between the briefings, I am always scanning the horizon, looking for opportunities where you and I, rallying around the things that we believe in, can advance the principles of the things that we believe in into society, culture, politics, and government, which is what we're doing right now. For example, within the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election race, we're doing that right now. But there is another aspect of me scanning the horizon, is I look for those threats that are coming at us. One such threat, to give you an example, is that right now our federal Liberal government is flirting with the idea of fully decriminalizing prostitution in our country, which would have a serious impact on the safety of our women and children in our nation. And obviously, this would be an opportunity for human traffickers to grow their businesses even greater than they are. That's why we're doing today, for example, on the briefing, we're spending time with our anti-human trafficking educator, Cathy and a municipal councillor who is actively working in local government in her community, so that she can actually deal with this ongoing threat that could be coming down the road. So that's another thing we do. So those are the three things we do. That is the answer to the question, Doug, what is it that you do? We obviously do a lot of other things as well, but those are the three things that we focus here on the National Leadership Briefing that I want you to know about, because it's you that is going to take the action by using your authorities. When we serve you, it is equipping you for you to make a difference in your local community by using the information we provide you locally. It's not me, it's all about you. I hope that's a great answer for that question today. I thank you so much for the question being asked all the time, but we're going to keep moving on here. I want to come back here right away with coming back with the agenda. And what we'll do is we're going to start off really quickly here with a quick report from the war room, because we need to really make sure that we're making the most use out of the last few hours that we have in this membership cutoff period with the Conservative Party of Canada leadership election race. So we'll be right back here in a moment, but here, let's take a look at this short video from our ConservativeUpdate.com website that we'll be using to help us in the days ahead. Okay, again, that is the ConservativeUpdate.com website. We'll make sure those coordinates are put in the post briefing notes for you today. But that is the website where you will find in the future all of the initiatives that we take to advance the principles of the 4 pillars into the Conservative Party of Canada. And of course, we're doing that right now with the leadership election race. We're going to be doing that with the local electoral district association strategies of putting people on the local boards. We've got the election of national councillors and the policy convention coming up. So that is a website that you're going to want to make a bookmark on your computers at home, and make sure you track with us there as well. So, but we will come back to that. For now, we want to make sure we check in with the War Room, as this is the last day for eligibility for people to get their memberships in the Conservative Party of Canada, so that they are eligible to receive a ballot in the mail. So here, let's check in with the War Room right now and get the final word from our Tier 1 operator, Doug Sharp. Well, thanks so much for checking in with the War Room. That is a fantastic thing to be doing on 0 day, because we can tell the story that 87 days ago, all of us made the decision that until the membership cutoff date, till 0 day, which is today, we were going to just take a tiny bit of work, a tiny bit of effort every single day, and do what we could to share this opportunity with others. And thousands of people have been touched over the course of these last 87 days. And I'm excited. I'm excited about what has been accomplished. But I tell you what I'm most excited about is we still have some time left today. I mean, if you think about what we've accomplished over the last 87 days, and then take a look at the hours we have left, we can do an awful lot with that. So my encouragement to everybody is be excited. But remember, we are definitely working a plan. It's definitely a plan that's going to be 2 years. Operation Red Flag, we just completed the first objective. We have until midnight tonight. We have 11:59 p.m. Eastern time is the cutoff. So if you get on the phone and you talk to a few more people, I think you're going to be able to share the opportunity with even more people. You can get them to go online to this website right here, formycanada.ca, or to conservative.ca, and they can get their membership, and then they'll get a ballot. So let's cut it short here today. Let's get everybody back out there on the phones and on the road, and let's do what we can, man. There's time left. We can achieve our objective today. Thanks so much, Doug. I appreciate the opportunity to share that with you. Bye for now. Well, of course, we recorded that earlier on because we wanted to make sure we could get to everything today. But Doug did say it right. I mean, this is an exciting time for Canada. Thank you, everyone who participated so far in the first stage of Operation Red Flag. And of course, as Doug mentioned, that is the first mission in a serious plan to transform the political landscape of our nation. So you will be seeing War Room Canada again in the future. It is here to stay. Now, another deployment that we need to be focusing on the road ahead as we scan the horizon for those threats is we need to be looking to this flirting of government with the idea of decriminalizing prostitution. And so we thought it would be appropriate for the Tier 1 operator, Doug Sharp, in the War Room to speak with Cathy as well. Cathy Peters, our anti-human trafficking educator, to get the update from there. So here we are heading back into the War Room for a conversation between Doug and Cathy that was recorded earlier this week. Well, thank you so much, Cathy, for joining us at the National Leadership Briefing. And today we're in the War Room. Good to see you here.
Thanks so much. Great to see everybody.
Now, it's been a little while since you've been on the National Leadership Briefing. And of course, I know how much you accomplish in a very short period of time. So tell us, what is it that you're doing? What have you been doing the last little while?
Well, thank you very much, Doug. First of all, as a private citizen and a former inner city high school teacher, I started the Be Amazing campaign to stop sexual exploitation. And so my website is a really useful teaching website, beamazingcampaign.org. So I have been doing absolutely nonstop presentations to city councils. You know, your civic level of government's really important. Regional districts, school boards, police boards, Indigenous groups, universities, high schools, and law enforcement. So I am building a grassroots movement to raise awareness about human trafficking, sexual exploitation, and child sex trafficking in order to stop it. I'm going to give the definition again because we all need to hear it. Human trafficking is the recruiting, transporting, transferring, receiving, holding, concealing, harboring, or exercising control over a person for the purpose of exploiting them. The key word is exploitation. This is modern day slavery. Canada has a current law in place we cannot lose. It is called the Protection of Communities and Exploited Persons Act. It's got 4 parts. Number 1, it criminalizes the buyer of sex and the profiteers. Number 2, it recognizes the seller as a victim who is immune from prosecution. There's supposed to be exit strategies in place to help the victim out, and there's supposed to be robust education strategies in place to keep youth out. Please note, everybody, prostitution is illegal in Canada. Half of Canadians don't know that. Prostitution is illegal currently in Canada. Now, here are the stats. I'm just going to hold them up. I won't read them. Maybe you can all have a look at them. These are the scary stats. And the big thing I want everybody to know is Canada is a child sex tourism destination. And I want everybody to go crazy on that. I mean, that's your children, folks, your youth, your children, the Indigenous youth for sure. Where did I get that information from? That comes from the Trafficking in Persons report, actually 2021. That is out of the US State Department.
Now, this is what I love about the things that you present and the way that you present them, Cathy, is because this is so often presented or discussed in Canada as if it's a challenge happening in some far off and far away place. And you know, and I know because you and I work together on anti-human trafficking boards and initiatives and things like that. You and I know that this is something that's here within our own communities.
Absolutely. Do you want me to go over the highlights and trends that I see?
Hey, if you see some trends that are happening right now, we definitely want to see them because what's coming up is what we need to know here on the briefing.
Okay, so first of all, I want to give you all the 3 highlights that I've just gone through, which is awesome. I was asked to present to the Federal Justice Committee. Now that's a big deal. I was asked to present at a global summit on the impact of pornography. Pornography is a fuel to this thing. Impact of pornography on youth as a public health crisis. And I was asked just a few weeks ago to present to law enforcement across all of Canada by the RCMP. So here are the 2 major trends I am observing. Number 1, the sex industry is pushing Ottawa to fully decriminalize prostitution in Canada. In other words, legalize it. So we would look like Germany, the Netherlands, Nevada, Thailand, New Zealand. Because we share the longest border in the world with the US, Canada would become America's brothel. If any of you get this one piece, we don't want to become America's brothel. Right. Indigenous women and girls will be first casualties, along with new migrants. I mean, think of the Ukrainians that are now coming in. Ukrainian women and girls, youth at risk, youth in care, disabled, LGBTQ. My second point or observation is the sex industry is targeting younger and younger ages. So I just got this out of the paper out of Victoria. You can see it says human trafficking of teens and tweens. We're talking 10, 11, and 12 years old is a serious issue on Vancouver Island. I mean, who would even believe this? So it's by media, social media, and pop culture. There is a tidal wave of hypersexualization of our youth and children. Sexualizing our children causes deep harm and lifelong trauma. So the schools are the recruiting grounds for gangs and sex trafficking. Recruiting now is big, and it's peer-on-peer recruiting amongst the girls. Sex work, they call it sex work, I don't, but amongst youth has now become fashionable and trendy and cool. They do not understand the harm it causes.
So this is important to know because the vulnerability of citizens and the importance of laws and policies of civil government to protect vulnerable people within our communities is a priority for us. Now, what can we do, or what can each individual person do to be a part of providing solutions or delivering solutions in their own communities?
Okay, I love it when you ask me that because I keep it super simple. You learn about the issue, you're doing that now, then you share it with your sphere of influence. But the big thing is to alert your law enforcement. Report. Let them know what is going on. They are my best friends. And then let your politicians know what you want in your community. Get to know your mayor and your city councilors really well, and then your MLA and your MP. You let them know as a private citizen living in their riding what you want. Everybody can really do something. And I love the fact, I mean, I'm just one person, so none of you can say I can't do anything. Yes, you can. And I passed on to Doug a template later, for example, to the federal justice minister. So any of you can download that, fire that off to him. Hard copy, do it hard copy, don't do email, because hard copy is very powerful. But I also have a petition, a human trafficking petition, hard copy again. If you just get 26 signatures, super simple, and then send that off to MP Brad Viss. He's worked on this with me. He can stand up in the House of Commons and speak for 1 minute. So if you can get more than 26 signatures, he can speak that much longer. So excuse my language, easy peasy.
Yes.
Easy peasy, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, Cathy. I'm glad that you mentioned that because there is a lot that we can do with very little output of our time, but just being aware and all of us working together when we do come together makes just a powerful impact on, especially as you mentioned, empowering our members of parliament to speak in defense of the vulnerable. That's how the process works. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Now we're going to include those resources in the post-briefing notes today, and we're definitely going to be adding your beamazingcampaign.org website. Definitely going to include that, and I encourage everyone, please take the responsibility on yourself. The vulnerability of people in your community is your individual responsibility as a citizen. Thank you so much for your time today, Cathy. I appreciate you spending it with us. I look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Good. Thanks so much, Doug.
Bye for now. Now, we'll make sure that in the post-briefing notes that those resources that Cathy mentioned are included. Remember, the goal is that when we share information with you, you use your authority within your own community to perhaps advance those same principles or similar tactics and strategies to, again, provide that additional protection for the citizens of your local community. Now, there is another individual who is working hard within her community and is offering to assist others in duplicating what she has achieved, and that is Grace Simon, who is a counselor with Newmarket, Ontario's Municipal Council. And she has, I wanted to just read it right off of her introduction, that I'll make sure that we have, again, in the post-briefing notes. She ended up with a unanimous vote of her municipal council to see illegal body rub and massage parlors removed through a licensing process and protections put in place for those individuals who are human trafficked into these operations. Unanimous vote at the municipal council level, and she is offering to assist others do the same. So let's introduce you to Grace Simon, if you don't already know her, from Newmarket, Ontario. Thank you so much, Grace, for joining us again today on the National Leadership Briefing. It's good to have you here.
It's so great. Always great to connect with you, Doug. Thank you so much for opening this up again today.
Well, we needed to because you did something pretty amazing, and we've been tracking along with you in Newmarket. You have initiated this bylaw licensing regime. You've actually got it up and running now, and we needed to get an update from you because we would like to, as you know, we want to duplicate what you've accomplished in Newmarket all across the nation. So why don't you maybe start out by giving us an update as to some of the things that we haven't talked about since you actually had the bylaw licensing plan put in place. Did it go into place in January? Was it January?
January 25th. They started their process a few months ago, and I think we had 10 identified parlors in the community. And so bylaw has gone through their whole process of reaching out to the identified massage parlors and giving them the notification that they needed to go through proper process, and that is being able to provide certification, especially for the girls for the men or the women that work in these facilities, that they have indeed taken the proper education in Canadian education for massage therapy. We moved from massage parlors to identifying them as wellness centers.
Mm.
And so wellness centers have to have certified RMTs. They have to have certified certification from Canadian education centers in order to be able to provide service to patrons in Newmarket.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone, and I'm definitely going to include a copy of the bylaw again in the post notes today. But as you look through this bylaw, and this is the one thing we got feedback on this last time we shared it, was you really weren't asking for things that were outrageous of the body rub parlors. You were asking for them to obtain and maintain the license. You said that they needed to have an attendant, needed to be in compliance with certain regulations. The regulations include that the age of the person giving and receiving the service had to be minimum 18 years. There were some signage requirements here. There was a requirement that no alcohol or illicit drugs were on the premises. I mean, this was really a very rational approach. However, my understanding is that you're hitting some resistance along the way with this desire to really just add better governance to an industry that needed help.
That's exactly it, Doug. When you go to get a haircut, have their nails done, generally people want to know that you've taken a course, right? You've gone through the proper procedures before you go to work. So this is the same thing. We're just making sure that you have the authority, you have the certification, you're going through, the health procedures, keeping it clean, keeping everybody safe, and making sure everything is taken care of. It's just a very practical licensing that we've put through a Newmarket. And that's why, we had 100% agreements in council that are standing by this licensing, because it makes so much sense. But it's interesting, the opposition that we're getting is not necessarily, again, from Newmarket. We're getting an opposition from the human rights, sex trafficking organizations coming against us, saying this is a racial issue. We are costing people's jobs, costing people's livelihoods in putting this licensing, and they're really making it a racial issue when it's never been a racial issue. In fact, I was saying to you, Doug, that one of our biggest advocates, Cassandra Diamond, her story is she lived and grew up in Newmarket, and she was trafficked. She was approached and she was brought into the field of sex trafficking and through a massage parlor. And she, being a resident of Newmarket, is advocating for this licensing, saying these body rub parlors are dangerous places for young women.
Well, that has been obvious right from the very first time that I first came across this initiative, and you and Cassandra, was you really are doing it with the right heart. And that's why we felt comfortable that we wanted to really work with you to duplicate this across the nation, because if we have any municipal councillors or people who want to speak to their municipal governments about this that are watching today, and to have a look at perhaps some of these operations that might be in your own towns, you've got Grace and Cassandra, our people are stepping out and they're taking the heat. They're breaking the ground for you, and they're also standing there willing to help you do the very same thing in your own communities. That's a pretty good offer. I appreciate very much, Grace, you guys making that offer. Yes, to help people on the road ahead.
Oh, yes, Doug. And, we are just really in a very limited time. So for those of you that are watching this segment, and I want to say thank you, Doug, for bringing this to the surface and just, walking along this journey with us, because I believe that we are really dealing with a limited time of where we have open doors to have these licensing put into place into our municipalities, because there are people that these organizations that are opposing us and wanting to take us to the Human Rights Tribunal, they're wanting to see prostitution legalized. Mm-hmm. That's they're wanting to go to a federal level with this. So that's why they're coming at us at a municipal level, because they really want to see prostitution legalized in Canada. But if we have these licensing put into our municipalities of keeping women safe, keeping our communities safe and secure, we're saying these are the type of businesses that we are supporting. Hopefully that never happens, that we have prostitution fully legalized, and that's why you're doing what you're doing. That's why we're doing what we're doing. But even if it does, we have these licenses that are already in place, this governance that's already in place in our municipalities. So if anything changes, we have laws already protecting our communities against such actions.
I'm going to share the Newmarket, some local news from Newmarket that talks about the issue. I want to share the body rub licensing bylaw itself. And I want to make sure, again, everybody looks to the post briefing notes today, because I'm also going to share Cassandra Diamond's personal testimony that she shared during a TED Talk quite a few years ago, I guess now. But it's absolutely fabulous for understanding the significance of this issue that we're talking about today. Grace, thank you so much for your time today. I sure appreciate you joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Doug, for just following up again, and look forward to giving you more information a few months down the road. Thank you.
Let's do it. Okay, bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now continuing on, our next Citizen Spotlight segment today is on our school board trustee trainer here at the National Leadership Briefing, Leanne Tiede. Oh, Leanne, thanks so much for making the time to join us today. It's good to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you, Doug. It's been a long time.
It has. We've both been pretty busy. I know you've been busy. So but it's exciting days right now, because there is so much action at the local levels of government these days. And there's so many school board trustee elections going on. We just want to make sure that we're reconnecting with people. So tell us, what do we need to know? Remind us about what a great offer it is that you made people last time you came on the National Leadership Briefing.
Well, being a trustee it's fun. It's exciting. Actually, I find it really challenging and encouraging to see what's going on in our schools and stand up for families and to help parents be able to raise their children the way they want to. Like you always say, is one of the 4 pillars. It's
right.
Something that we have to stand for.
Well, and this is the offer. This is parents and people that live in their communities. There's so many of us that sometimes get this feeling like we're this tug on our hearts to, should I be serving here? Should I be jumping into this mix or walking down that path? Well, I know there's lots of people that do have a heart to serve locally and would like to be trustees, but they just don't know, like, what's the first place to start? And you'd probably know that, answer that question, because you help people doing that.
Yeah, I do actually. I'm amazed at how many people have contacted me about being a trustee. After our last little chat that we had, I had some emails come in about people all across Canada. I was surprised where all I heard from. And it's really just get to know your board, get to know who's on your board, what they do, check out their website. Elections in BC are coming up pretty quick. I'm not familiar with all the other provinces. We just went through Alberta not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I have learned in all of this since we last talked is that there's so much that people can do. They don't just have to run for trustee. I had one lady at church. She came up to me at the coffee center and she said, I can't run for trustee, but what could I do? And we had a really great little chat. And ever since our chat, she's been at every single one of my board meetings. And she gets up and she asks them questions. She asks questions that I don't have a voice to ask, even as a trustee, because we don't necessarily, if we're following Robert's rules all the time and in a set agenda, we don't always have an opportunity to just ask the random questions. Like we have to stick to the agenda. So she and I chat every week now, and she gets up there and she'll ask the out of the blue question that just catches everybody and keeps them on their toes. So it's been really fun to get community support. It's really been growing. I've seen a lot of that.
Well, fantastic. And this discovery of people, I'm glad you mentioned that. When citizens and parents discover the authorities that they have and then learn how to wield them and use them and manage them in within their local communities, it's a powerful thing. I agree. I've seen it happen before as well. So people are going to be hearing this message today, and they're going to go, well, maybe I do want to do something locally. I want to participate at the school board level or local government level. Can they get in touch with you still? Are you still taking calls and helping people do that?
Every day I'm taking calls. I've got a Signal chat group where we talk about ideas and questions that people can ask of their boards. My email address is encouragefromtheheart@gmail.com. People can get involved at all sorts of levels, and now's the time.
Terrific. Well, there you go, everybody. Anybody that has a heart for their local community at the school board level, we have Leanne right here, ready to help, willing to take your call. encouragefromtheheart@gmail.com. We'll make sure that is included along with an offer letter that you've put together to invite people, to encourage people to get in touch with you as well. We'll make sure that those are in the post briefing notes today. Thanks so much for being here today, Leanne.
Great. Thank you, Doug.
Have a great day. Okay, our next Citizen Spotlight segment today is actually introduction of a new resource partner here at the National Leadership Briefing. A resource partner, of course, is someone who we say you should be looking to for information in a specific area. And we have today Franco Terrazanno from the Canadian Taxpayer Federation. And this organization has been around for an awful long time and is well established and has an outstanding reputation for helping the citizens of Canada understand the circumstances, the financial well-being of the nation we live in. And Franco has agreed to join us today to share some information with us that will introduce you to him and hopefully a relationship that you will continue to have in the future. So let's bring on Franco Terrazanno of the Canadian Taxpayer Federation. Okay, well, thank you so much, Franco, for joining us today. We're excited to have you on the briefing because, as I've told you before, from the first day I met you, I wanted to get you introduced to the people that we serve here.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience. I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got a lot to say and a lot of really good information. So let me start with this question. There is an awful lot going on right now in our nation when it comes to our financial current situation financially as a nation. What information can you share with the people that we serve here about where we're at right now as a nation from the fiscal perspective?
Well, it's not good. It's not good. We just got I guess recently, the 2022 budget from the federal government, and it's up to its eyeballs in red ink. We see the government is more than $1 trillion in debt. The debt is going up by more than $1,000 every single second. And look, it doesn't look like this Liberal government is really ever going to balance the budget between me and you and your audience. We remember back, was it in 2014 when Trudeau said that the budget would balance itself? Well, of course, we now know that isn't going to happen. Then when he was running for prime minister in 2015, he promised to balance the books in 2019. That was before the pandemic. And of course, he missed that target by a country mile. Now we've had years and years of huge deficits. Back in 2020, the deficit was over $300 billion. 2021, last year, the deficit was over $100 billion. And this year, it looks like the budget is going to be over $50 billion. So we've seen huge deficit after huge deficit, ballooning the debt. And really the problem here is years and years of overspending.
Absolutely. And of course, here on the National Leadership Briefing, one of the 4 pillars is that we believe it's inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations, which is where all of this debt is ending up. Now, as we look forward, there must be some solutions that we can advance into the conversation. And of course, I know you're a nonpartisan organization. I know that you speak to all parties and all politicians about what it is you'd like to see advanced. But there is a conversation going on right now within the Conservative Party of Canada. If you were talking to the candidates today, what is it that you would be encouraging them to commit to moving forward if they were elected to leader of that party?
Oh, well, that's a great question. And I'm going to give you 3 things that we would be asking. Number one, when are you going to balance the budget and how are you going to do it? You just mentioned that so many parents, they want to leave the nation, the finances better to the next generation than what they got it. Well, right now, each person in Canada is about $30,000 owing in federal debt alone. By 2070, that projection is expected to reach $67,000. So that is a huge tax bill that we're leaving to future generations. So number one, I think what you need to ask these politicians or would-be leaders, what are they going to do to balance the budget and when are they going to do it? Now, we ran some analysis that shows that the federal government could balance the budget within 2 years just by returning to pre-pandemic spending, which, by the way, were all-time high. So number one, when are you going to balance the budget? How are you going to do it? Number two, what's your stance on the carbon tax? Are you going to scrap the carbon tax? The carbon tax is all economic pain without environmental gain. British Columbia has had the highest carbon tax in Canada for years, but emissions there continue to go up. And of course, Canada makes up about 1.5% of global emissions. So even if the Trudeau government brought all of our industries to a screeching halt, which would cause a ton of pain, it still wouldn't do much for the global environment. And when you ask the candidate what they're going to do about the carbon tax, ask them, are they going to replace it with anything? Right? We don't just want the candidate to scrap the Trudeau government's carbon tax. We want them to scrap it without putting in a carbon tax of their own. And number three, when are we actually going to see some meaningful tax relief? The last platform from the Conservative Party in the last election, it was full of all these niche tax credits, a tax credit here, a tax credit there. But we need to see real broad-based tax relief, cutting the income tax, reducing business taxes, reducing sales taxes, things of that nature. So those are the three questions that you should be asking when they come knocking on the doors.
Wow, that is fantastic information. Now, I know there's a lot of information. Like, I've been tracking with you guys for a while, but you're perhaps new to many of the people that are listening to you today. How do people best keep in touch with you to be receiving your updates and to be getting in touch with you and even to supporting your organization financially?
Well, thank you so much for that question, but please head over to taxpayer.com. You can even join us there free of charge to get our email action updates. Of course, we love donations because we don't take a single cent from the government, never have, never will. But you can join free of charge just to get our email action updates. Then, of course, follow us on Twitter, taxpayer.com on Twitter, Franco_nomics on Twitter, or on Facebook too. We have a lot of great stuff there. Just search Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and I'm sure you'll see a lot of good stuff.
Great. Now, as a special enticement for everybody that's on the briefing today, I'm going to give you just a little advance warning that Franco is committed to sharing 3 videos with me that I am going to put links in the post-briefing notes so you can see just how amazing this guy is and his organization at the end of the day today when you receive your post-briefing notes in the email. Thank you so much, Franco, for joining us today. I appreciate this. I look forward to having you on again and getting in even more updates.
Hey, sounds good. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Take care, friend. So I'm going to emphasize one more time to check with the post-briefing notes today where you'll find these special videos, because you are going to like the Canadian Taxpayer Federation, and you are definitely going to like staying in touch with Franco Terrazanno because he has fantastic information to share on a regular basis. And again, don't be afraid to pull out your wallet or your credit card and go online and support that organization as well. Well, thank you so much for that. Thanks so much again to Franco and his team for joining us today. All right, now moving on and right on down the home stretch, and we are on the home stretch. We're going to be actually bringing you information here in just a moment about a special event that's coming up that you can participate in. We've already had one call of what's called the Transformers Call. It's a Community Action Council initiative that we introduced here last National Leadership Briefing. And our next speaker in the series is Pastor Randy Howard, but I'm not going to introduce him right now. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to hit the ground running fresh here. Let me bring on Randy in a moment, and then we will finish up for the day. Well, thank you so much for your attention so far, but stick around. There's some really good stuff coming up. Bye for now. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number 3, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number 4, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Well, I can't think of a better way to spend our time on the home stretch today than introducing you to this next gentleman that's joining us. He is a very special guest, a very special friend to me. He's been very encouraging for us in the work that we're doing outside of the National Leadership Briefing. But today, to bring him here and introduce him to you means an awful lot to me. There is going to be a special event coming up. And if you do just want to mark your calendars now, we'll talk about it in a second when I introduce you to this gentleman, but mark your calendars for June the 9th. On June the 9th at 11 a.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be putting some information in the post-briefing notes, some links to where you can find more information about this, but we are going to have another, what we call Transformer Calls. And for those of you who have a heart for your local community, then I would encourage you to participate in that call. But I'm going to let you meet today the special guest speaker that is going to be presenting on that call, and give you a little bit of a sneak peek as to what it is that he's going to be speaking about. So let me introduce you now to Randy Howard. And Pastor Randy Howard is a good friend of the National Leadership Briefing and very, very good friend of mine. And I'm excited to share him with you now. Well, thank you so much, Randy, for joining us today. We are excited to have you on the National Leadership Briefing. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, Doug. Thank you so much for the invitation, and it's a joy to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here because we got a bit of a taste of the work of the community action councils and statesman group and the work that we're doing, you and I and Adam, on the last National Leadership Briefing, because Adam Peacock came on and just shared his heart for community and for the people that live in your communities. And now here you are, you and I also work together. I've let everybody know that. And you're the next speaker on the next call.
I'm next up. I'm in the deck waiting to swing the bat.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad to have you here, Randy. First, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself first, and just introduce you to the National Leadership Briefing group here.
I'll be glad to. Yeah, I've been in ministry for over 40 years. Pastor a church in Southern California, the Gate Church of the High Desert in Victorville, just outside of Los Angeles. It's a bedroom community of Los Angeles. And been there 21 years now. Before that, I was in the South, deep South of Georgia for 14 years. That's where I grew up. My history and my heritage and everything is from the South. So moving across the country 21 years ago was quite a leap of faith and quite a journey for us. But we've enjoyed every bit of it. We've had tremendous time there building a church. Also serve with the Community Action Council, of course, a statesman project from its inception. I also oversee a global network of churches. We have churches in Southeast Asia, in Africa, Central America, called Kingdom Strategies International, or Kingdom Alliance of International Ministries, but it's a ministry of Kingdom Strategies International. So, and then I oversee Kingdom Ministries USA, which is a domestic network here, small but growing group of wonderful people. So my plate is full.
Okay, so you don't have any room for a few more Canadians?
Of course we do. Of course. We'll take as many as you got.
Well, we're good to be connected. It's good to be connected with you now. Now, you are going to be the speaker on the upcoming Transformer call that is on June the 9th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to be sharing all of those details on how people can log on to the call and how they can actually join us on our Facebook page as well. But Randy, we were hoping that you could tell us a little bit, give us a bit of a sneak peek as to what you might be sharing about on that call, because you are the speaker.
I am indeed. Well, yeah, I learned a valuable lesson, and that is don't miss any of the conference calls that we have, because if you do, you get volunteered for something, right? And that's kind of how I got roped into this. But I'm looking forward to it. It's always a joy and a privilege to be able to to share what God is doing in your life and how he's working in your community. And so I was asked to share a little bit out of my own experience, because coming from the Deep South, moving to a place that was so culturally different than the one that I had grown up in, and doing that as in a way of engaging that new community. And how does someone do that? And so really the question was, how do you fall in love with your city? How do you fall in love with your community? How do you develop a passion for that? Because again, I moved from a place I was comfortable in. And the story in the scripture that I relate to most is the story of Nehemiah. So I'll share a little bit about Nehemiah in that time together, but how Nehemiah was living in a place of comfort. You know, as a matter of fact, Nehemiah had a government job. He probably had a cushy job, right? He was working for the king. And but he was comfortable. But something happened in Nehemiah's life that turned his heart, and he fell in love, a renewed love for his homeland, for the city of Jerusalem, because of some things that were happening in his life that we'll go into in our forum. But that's kind of what happened to me. The Lord called me to a particular place at a particular time, some place that was foreign and different than what I had experienced. I was comfortable where I was. I wasn't looking to go anywhere. And so the question is, what compelled you to go 2,000 miles away to a brand new place to learn a new culture, and then try to engage a city or community that needed so much? And the scripture, 2 Corinthians 5:14, you know, just continued to come to mind. For the love of Christ compels us. And I had to learn how not necessarily to love the city first or the community first, but how to love the leading of the Lord. And that became basically our call point, if you will, is that the Lord was leading us and calling us to a place I didn't want to go. But because I loved the leading of the Lord and knew that he had my best interest in mind, as well as the community where he was sending me, he had their best interest in mind, I responded in obedience. And then once I responded in obedience, it took some time, but eventually God birthed some things in us for that community, a love, a compassion for that community, and then began to give us some strategies to mobilize that community in order to bring transformation. So that's kind of my story, and a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to talk about a birthing of compassion. How does that happen? I'm going to talk about a building of consensus. Once that compassion is there, I'm going to talk about being a blessing to the community ultimately. And again, I'm going to do it in a way, my story is I moved 2,000 miles away, but there are some people that live in the community and have not yet fallen in love with their community.
Right. Right.
So how do we follow a process? How do we engage that process that God is working out in our lives? So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Randy, I just can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. And thank you for sharing this experience with others, because I know for a fact, because I have settled in my own community, and I'm one of those, I'm just, wait a second, has everything that the community is needing to draw out of me being drawn out of me, and am I being attentive to the Lord's leading as to what I'm supposed to be doing in my community locally? So I totally relate to what you're saying. I'm excited about hearing what you have to share. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad to be able to share and looking forward to it. And I just want to encourage those who are listening to join us. You know, in every presentation, there's always something that can be specifically applicable to anyone, anywhere. And so I'm hoping that will happen during this time.
And it will and that's on Thursday, June the 9th, everybody, National Leadership Briefing. Remember, you are going to receive the post-briefing notes today. I'm also going to include so for those of you who are on the briefing for the first time today, I'm going to include the previous speaker segment from Adam Peacock, because Randy's message actually dovetails perfectly into from out of that into what he's going to be sharing. So you'll have that to review before the next June 9th Transformer call, where Randy Howard's message is going to be shared. Thank you, Randy, again for joining us today. We're so excited. We'll see you on the June 9th call.
All right, Doug. Thank you. Love you, brother.
Love you too. Take care.
Okay.
Well, that's our time for today. Thank you so much for your attention. I'll look forward to serving you again. In the meantime, please look to those post-briefing notes, because the information that we share during the 1 hour that we have is always delivered very quickly. We understand that. However, if you use the post-briefing notes the way they're intended, to look for those opportunities, those resources where you can gather the information together and apply it locally in your own communities, I'm sure you'll find that you'll have great influence and there'll be a lot of positive change. Until next time, and until the next midweek touch point, which we're starting again next week, I just wanted to let you know that we will continue to pray for you. We're going to pray for your family. And of course, we're going to continue to pray for this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.